funny or significant that we've been having trouble with fire today as we explore transformation. Something there, you know, the transformative element. I have been thinking for so long about what I want to say to you at this platform. It's like a little running tape that's been going on in my head for a few months. Partly because this is my last platform before my 3-month sabbatical, which is exciting and scary and certainly nervous-making. But also because transformation, the theme that we begin to explore this month, is so much a part of what a community like Wes is about. Back at the beginning of this congregational year, way back in September, you remember September, right? It's a while ago. Yeah. I talked about what rebuilding meant. We were exploring the theme of homecoming. You can see the green poster there from homecoming. And I started off our year by talking about rebuilding together and what that meant. And I talked about it at that time. I talked about it on a personal level for each of us, what it means to rebuild in our lives, on the level of the West community, and then in the world around us. I talked about how in our lives, always, we are continually building and rebuilding, dismantling and building again. And now, as we enter into the month of transformation, I think about how what all that rebuilding is for the possibility that transformation might happen. Again, and again, and again. That all the rebuilding we do is either so that we might transform, or so that we can cope with transformation that has been thrust upon us, which happens sometimes too. It always feels that way with transformation. Sometimes we have the luxury of seeking it out, and sometimes it simply happens to us, unbidden, perhaps unwelcome. We had a term for that when I was in seminary, those transformative experiences. We called it AFGEs, was another bleep growth experience. We were training, to become clergy, not to become angels. So there's a John Maxwell quote. John is a pastor, actually, but he's spoken and written widely on leadership, and I love the way he puts it. Change is inevitable, he says. Growth is optional. So what does this mean for us right now? What do I want to say to you? It's a lot of pressure, it turns out, to feel like I have words that are sort of somehow wise enough that they will last for 3 months. I'm going to guarantee they won't. How about that? That'll make me feel more relaxed. You guys can sigh a breath of relief. What I'd like to do, I think, is talk about transformation in those same 3 categories. The personal transformation in the West community and transformation in the world around us. I think in some ways personal transformations are often where we begin, what we imagine as most central to our own lives. Anais Nin has a beautiful quote. She said, "I take pleasure in my transformations. I look quiet and consistent, but few know how many women there are in me." We all have these many women in us, these many men, these many people over the course of our lifetime. And sometimes we shift from one to the other because we have planned long and hard for that shift. And sometimes the shift, as I said, comes upon us unwelcome. A shift from the outside, a loss, perhaps, a change in role, a sense that we are not the same person we were before. Those are the harder transformations, at least we say so. How we cope with the change that life forces on us. And then here I am at the beginning of this incredible gift of a 3-month sabbatical. I have the opportunity to think about how I might want to transform, to plan for it in a way. I've been thinking about all of that and what I want to do on sabbatical. And of course, you all have been asking me, I think about for the last 6 months, what are you going to do on sabbatical? What are you going to do on sabbatical? What are we doing for sabbatical? And mostly I have said something like, oh, nothing. Or, I don't know yet. For me, part of what I'm hoping to practice on sabbatical is having fewer plans than usual. And it's a stretch, let me tell you. I was talking with a coach the other day about my upcoming sabbatical at a clergy person, and I said, you know, I think on my first day of sabbatical, I've been talking with colleagues, what should I do that first day? And they said, whatever sounds the most fun to you, just do something really, really wonderful that really nurtures you. And so I thought maybe I would go get a bunch of artistic materials and storyboard my whole 3-month sabbatical out. I would design it. I knew I didn't want to write lists about it. That was really super type A. So I thought I would just draw perfect drawings of each of the chapters of my sabbatical. I'm going to start with letting go, and then I'm going to. And so I was telling this to the coach, and he said, "Oh, well, that sounds like something you could do." And I said, the thing is, I really want, by the end of the 3 months, I just want it to be. I want it to have been totally transformative. And he said, I want to set your expectations a little lower. And I thought, oh, right. Change is inevitable, growth is optional. And I don't think it usually comes on our schedule. Right. So I have changed my expectations. I have tried to lower them. I'll do only a little storyboarding, really. I have the first chapter of my sabbatical named, but not the second one yet. That's pretty good for me. It's only a month out. The second one, I don't know what it's going to be. I loved the piece that our chorus sang during the meditation music. That's what I want to do on my sabbatical. Hush, wait, and listen. Listen for what needs to be drawn or storyboarded. Listen for what emerges. Not think I know how it will be. I think about our turtle story too. I don't actually want to be buried in a compost heap on my sabbatical, but I do like the idea of going inside, seeing what lies in wait there. So often for us, that personal transformation comes from moments like that, I think. From the space that we give ourselves not to know what comes next. So tricky. Also so important, because when we plan what comes next, you may have noticed, it's not actually always what comes next. Not on the schedule we thought, with our little post-it notes and bullet points. How are we like that turtle? The common metaphor, I think, for personal transformation is usually the caterpillar and the butterfly, and that's a good one too, you know. But the caterpillar emerges so radically different, and sometimes we're more like the turtle. Sometimes the transformation we experience is just making it through the wintertime, so that we can emerge, still a turtle, when the spring comes. So that's personal transformation. What about this community in general and in the next 3 months too? When I invited you to look back to September, I wonder what you saw in your mind's eye. Some of you didn't see anything thinking about this community last September. Some of you weren't here last September. You hadn't found us yet, hadn't walked through our doors. What do you imagine in your mind's eye a year back before that? Or 10 years? Some of you remember 20 years and 30 years ago in this community. A community like Wes is constantly in some kind of transformation, or at least some kind of change. I think we probably fit that saying too. Change is inevitable, growth is optional. But always something is changing. It's good, it's hard, it's terrible, it's hard again. Right now, the last few months, Wes has been in something of a numerical growth period. I say numerical growth because there's all kinds of growth, you know. There's growth in terms of spiritual depth or ethical principles. There's growth in terms of programs. Well, those of you that have children in our Sunday school or who look for a seat at a later time on Sunday mornings when you come in know we've had some numerical growth here. And that's exciting and wonderful and hard and kind of stressful. Part of what a community like Wes does in the midst of all of that change, which happens all the time, whether you can see it or not, you know, things are changing in a community like Wes. People are leaving and people are coming. What we offer changes. Our children grow up. Part of what is important for us to do, I think, is identify the core of who we are amidst that change. What is worth hanging on to despite everything, despite the movements of the world and our own movements in time. And then I wonder what happens when we're in the midst of all of that change, if we begin to think of it instead as transformation. I wonder if it's just a semantic difference, just one word for another, or if there's a difference in how we approach it. There's a Sufi story that I heard a number of years ago, and I was reminded of it as I thought about this platform. I just love it. It tells the story of a stream coming from the far-off mountains. Passing through all kinds of different countryside, the stream just flows along, easily up and down, over the little hills, through the rocks, until it comes to a desert. And it tries, this stream, you have to kind of anthropomorphize the stream, you know that, right? Just go in here. So it tries this stream to get across the desert. But of course it can't. As soon as the water gets into the sand, it's absorbed, the waters disappear. But the stream was convinced that its destiny was to cross the desert. It said to itself, the wind crosses the desert, so why can't I? Oh no, wait, the stream didn't say that. It was a hidden voice. It was a hidden voice. Maybe it was internal to the stream. We don't know. The wind crosses the desert, and so can you, says this hidden voice. The stream said that the wind can fly. That's how the wind crosses the desert. It's completely different. And the voice says, well, yes, if you go across in your accustomed way, you will not be able to cross the desert. That's true. You've tried, and the water is absorbed in the sands. You will either disappear or you will become a marshland. You have to allow the wind to carry you. How would that be possible? The wind to lift up a whole stream? Well, you must be absorbed in the wind, said the voice. This idea was not acceptable to the stream. It had never been absorbed before. It didn't want to lose its individuality. It had its streamness, and it was sticking to it. The wind said, oh, it's the sand. Goodness, it's the sand talking, people, okay? The voice is coming from the sand. Okay, all right, we've got it now. I flipped my page too early, and I missed where the voice was coming from. Boy, hush, wait, and listen.